Hey everyone, it is Joanna Phillips with Let's Talk About It. Tammy's not here today because she's feeling a little under the weather, so I am going solo. We have lots to cover today. Well, not really lots, but a large main topic. First and foremost, like, share, and follow. We are trying to get more people involved. And as always, thank you for hanging out with us. First update, the playground at the park. Tammy has been updating us as she lives across the street from there. You can see that work is happening. There was some questions in regards to, it was thought that the playground equipment was moving. That was decided not to happen. So we will keep you updated on that. It is supposed to be done, or hopefully will be done before the park program starts, the summer youth program, and I think that is June 29th. So we'll keep you updated on that. The school budget. The budget did not pass because they did not get the supermajority. By my calculations, it was like six or seven votes that they needed to get the supermajority, but the bus purchases did pass. Obviously, Sharon and Alex were voted back in. Alex's numbers were wrong on the New Lebanon Post. I think he got like 431 votes. That means that there will be another vote. They'll figure that out. So I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that. So stay tuned. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at the community center is the community forum Q&A. Doors open at 6:30 and it is from 7 to 8:30. You can join it online through Google Meets, and I will put that link up for you. You can go in person and ask questions. If you want to be anonymous in person, you can fill out a card. You can email questions ahead of time to newlebweb@gmail.com, which is newlebweb@gmail.com. They had the practice run last night. I heard it went pretty well. So again, doors open at 6:30, starts at 7. The full board will be there to answer questions. It is considered a special meeting. It is possible that they could do some other, business at the same time because it is a special board meeting considered by law, I guess. There is a section to sit in to not be on camera because it will be recorded again. It'll be live through Google Meets, and then within 72 hours, it'll be up on the live stream website that the town usually uses. You have 2 minutes to ask your question. And don't be rude. No personal attacks. This is purely question and answer. So let's just keep ourselves together. And if you send in an email and you want it to be read anonymously, make sure that you put that note in the email. I will be there. I don't suspect I'll be asking any questions, but you never know. I will have my iPad with me to make notes or possibly record it. So that's that. As you all know, I put in a letter of interest for the Comprehensive Plan Committee. That meeting was Monday night. You can see that live streamed. It went really well. They are making a recommendation to the town board to put me on to appoint me to the committee. So that will be done at the next town board or special meeting. I don't know if that can be done tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. We'll see how that goes. So let's talk about the sewer district. I have been working on an email to the board since the day after the board meeting. I finally finished it at 12:13 a.m. this morning. And I did send it to the board. So I'm going to read you, and I apologize. This is 4 pages long. So I'm just going to kind of, some of it is what we talked about last week on the podcast, but we're going to get through this. So bear with me. Let me say up front, I am not against this sewer district, nor am I for it. There's too many unanswered questions. I'm neutral. And I believe Tammy feels the same way, but I cannot speak for Tammy. Okay, here we go. First and foremost, a big thank you to Susan, Steve, Joanne, and Chris for asking the questions. I do have several questions and comments regarding the proposed project, district formation process, and feasibility study timeline. So this is in quotes because it was stated in the documents. There are septic systems that are inadequate and failing in our downtown business district. My question is, besides the Midtown Mall, how many other specific properties have been identified with inadequate and failing systems? To be more specific, properties that have issues that are not internal, meaning internal plumbing issues rather than an issue with the actual septic system. Connecting to a municipal sewer system would enable existing businesses to become more sustainable by lowering their operating costs. My questions. How would operating costs realistically be lowered for businesses that already have functioning septic systems? Would the business owners or the building owners be responsible for paying the district? It was stated by the engineer that these tanks would be pumped every 3 to 5 years on a rotating basis. My comments and questions. It does not appear feasible for facilities with public restrooms, and particularly restaurants, to operate under the assumption of septic pumping only every 3 to 5 years. Restaurants generate substantially higher volumes of wastewater, food waste, grease, and solids than most other businesses, and most, if not all, commercial food establishments require septic pumping multiple times per year out of operational necessity. So think about that. Anything that has a public restroom, your restaurants, you have your grease traps, you have more solids, your food. So they're a lot different than anybody, really. It is presumed that individual businesses would still remain responsible for paying for any additional pumping or maintenance required beyond the baseline assumptions being discussed. If that is correct, please clarify what actual long-term operational savings certain businesses, particularly restaurants and higher volume commercial properties, would realistically experience under the proposed system. If a property already has a functioning septic system and leach field, what would be the practical or financial benefit of opting into the district? You also have people that have a home, and then there's apartments on the property that they own with, 4 septics. What are they gaining by this? When they have to have theirs, and that's on a smaller scale, they have to have theirs pumped every year. The operational realities and ongoing maintenance costs for commercial establishments differ significantly from standard residential assumptions. Next thing that was in the report. None of the costs for the system would come from the town's general funds. My comments and questions. However, the town itself would ultimately be the entity issuing the bond obligations associated with the project. Because of that, I believe Council Member Powers raised an important and reasonable question regarding what ultimately happens if the district does not generate sufficient revenue to cover bond payments, operational costs, maintenance expenses, legal fees, etc. It could be argued that collection actions would fall to the district itself against property owners who fail to pay. However, that raises additional practical questions regarding how such legal actions would initially be funded if the district itself is already experiencing financial shortfalls. Additional clarification would also be appreciated regarding the infrastructure and acquisition assumptions associated with the project. Is the property at Coons going to be purchased or leased? If purchased, who will be paying those acquisition costs? I mean, in my mind, that would be the town, because the district won't have any money. Who would be responsible for the upfront costs associated with the proposed pumping station and related infrastructure? It is also assumed that the community center would ultimately connect to the system. This means the associated connection fees, usage costs, and long-term operational expenses tied to that facility ultimately would be paid by town taxpayers out of the general fund, correct? Also in the report, total debt service is estimated at $35,000 to $40,000 annually, and O&M, which is operating and maintenance, is estimated to be $40,000 annually. My comments and questions. Estimated by who? The debt service is for how many years? 30? An O&M estimate of approximately $40,000 annually appears to be relatively low for administration, maintenance, repairs, and long-term equipment replacement. What does the maintenance entail and how often? The document states a property with a typical single-family residence would likely pay annual total of $800 to $1,000. My questions. What is considered a typical single-family residence? What would the typical square footage be and the number of bedrooms and baths? Important. Like, what's typical, right? Because you could have a 1,200 square foot house with 2 bedrooms as opposed to, depending on what they're looking at, could be a 3,000 square foot house with 5 bedrooms. It is assumed that any business that has public restrooms or is a restaurant will have higher flow rates. How much more would a business or restaurant pay, and how will that be calculated? How are they, is there going to be flow meters? Like, how are they calculating the flow and how much each building is going into the system? In the report, our plan is to collect a signature on a petition from every property owner that wants to connect to the system. Signing the petition means agreeing to pay a not to exceed amount, and then the system would ultimately go forward if and only if these numbers work out. My questions and responses. Will you be petitioning all zones, for example, 1A and 1B? What is the not to exceed amount? How long is that not to exceed amount guaranteed for? How will the not to exceed amount for commercial properties be determined? Before the petition is signed, will you have numbers to give each property owner showing them exactly what their payment would be? I believe it was stated that Peg and Josh would be getting the petition signed. Is this not a conflict of interest to have Josh part of this process? And I have nothing against Josh. He has a vested interest, and I feel like people would kind of look at it maybe self-serving. Based on statements made in this meeting regarding the feasibility study, I would like to refute some of these statements based on facts. So we're done pretty much with the question part of it. Based on statements made at the board meeting regarding the feasibility study, I reviewed the CAC meeting minutes, CAC committee reports, and town board meeting minutes to compare those statements against the documented public record. It was stated that seeker has to be completed first before the feasibility study. At no time was this said. I will refer you to the town board meeting minutes from 7/21/25. The majority of the board was not comfortable completing seeker until the feasibility study was completed. In that meeting, Supervisor Holtling stated Councilmember Skirkus already left and she has to go. She suggested emailing Brendan any other questions. Brendan is the engineer. And he will be getting the board the feasibility study. Should they hold another special meeting before August to do the seeker? He, meaning Brendan, hopes to have the study to the board this week. Brendan went over the upcoming timeline. Supervisor Holling feels they should hold a special meeting before the August regular meeting. They all agreed. The most important thing here is, without the seeker being done, Brendan said he hoped to have the study to the board this week. During the meeting, it was repeatedly suggested that the primary action being taken, this was this past meeting. During the meeting, it was repeatedly suggested that the primary action being taken was simply redirecting or reallocating funding. It was, we're moving the money from the engineer's contract to the new lawyer contract. While that may be partially true, the town also agreed to execute the Hodgson Russ proposal, which confirms that the town is now proceeding with formal Article 12 district establishment steps, including seeker compliance review, preparation of resolutions, public hearing documents, and bond resolutions associated with the district formation. In the last meeting, it was stated that the town board paused the feasibility study in August. I will refer you to the 8/12/25 board meeting minutes where it was stated, Supervisor Holling reported that this will be tabled. They have not received the study yet. Again, going back to, they were still anticipating getting the feasibility study without the seeker report done. I would also refer you to the 8/25/25 CAC meeting minutes, which states, still waiting for the feasibility study. So this definitely was not put on pause in August. Engineers backed up, and the engineers are backed up with state deadlines. Percent of survey responses needed have not been met to be helpful to date. And again, those surveys were to the residents, not necessarily the taxpayers. And they needed a certain amount of response from the surveys to hit a certain limit of income to be able to apply for federal grants. I would also refer you to the 9/9/2025 board meeting. Councilmember Skirkus. Craig inquired about delays with the municipal water and wastewater feasibility study. Josh Young, chair of the BEDC, which is the business committee, explained there was a technical disagreement between the engineer working on the feasibility study and the town's bond council. Supervisor Holding elaborated that the engineers wanted language in the bond resolution stating that the district would move forward only if costs remain under a certain threshold, while bond counsel Christine Chale maintained, I'm assuming that's how you say her last name, Chale, maintained the district must be created before seeking funding. Apparently, this wasn't the issue with bond counsel. It was an issue that everyone, including those that opted out, would have to pay some sort of fee. I will now refer you to the 9/25/25 CAC/BEDC meeting minutes. Requested that work on the feasibility study be put on hold until a legal matter could be resolved between the bond attorney and the engineer. 9/25 CAC/BEDC requested that work on a feasibility study be put on hold until a legal matter could be resolved between the bond attorney and engineer. Also, September of 2025, the committee report in the town board meeting, joint BEDC and Conservation Advisory Council wastewater feasibility study. Our engineer, Brendan Becker, is submitting a letter to the town board about the status of the project. The committee is in full agreement that due to unforeseen legal complications that have to be resolved, that the project is postponed until next year. This is a very large undertaking with many moving pieces, and we need to do our utmost to bring the good plan and solid information to the residents who may be in the districts. In October, in the meeting minutes, the CAC stated that there's a postponement. PEG said that the wastewater feasibility study has been postponed. It's going to be a winter project. Once we get the study, the joint committee, the BEDC and the CAC, needs to speak with residents about the plan so there's a clear understanding. We were tasked by the town board to get folks to sign a letter or a petition to opt in, and we need legal language for that. We have some financial data, but it needs to be refined. The 10/25 committee report to the town board. Wastewater and municipal water feasibility. It's going to be a winter project. Once we get the study, the joint committee needs to speak with residents in potential district about the plan so there's a clear understanding. And I want to reiterate, once we get the study, the joint committee needs to speak with residents in the potential district about the plan so that there's a clear understanding. We were tasked by the town board to get folks to sign a letter or petition to opt in, and we need legal language for that, as well as figuring out how funding works, district formation, pre or post funding. We have some financial data for residents, but it needs to be refined. My comment, clearly it was unpaused at some point as the 12/9/2025 CAC committee reports that wastewater feasibility study, our engineer will get us the projected numbers for property owners in full study sometime in December of 2025. That statement implies it was no longer paused. The January report and February report, we were still waiting on the report. We also heard during this most recent meeting that another reason the feasibility study allegedly could not be completed because petitions and participation information were needed to determine the financials. It is interesting to me that this has never been mentioned before. However, I will direct you to the April 26 CAC meeting minutes, as well as the April 26 CAC committee report. They seem to contradict each other, but this is the first time having financials was necessary to complete the feasibility study. Because again, I will take you back to the October reports that they were planning on getting the study before having petition signed. 4/6/26 meeting minutes. This is the CA meeting minutes. Wastewater received outside legal counsel confirming that opt-out of the district at no cost is allowed. This has been one of the legal issues that held up the process. Engineers feasibility study ready soon. We hope by April 28th, but no guarantee. Again, still, none of this is stating it had to be done before getting the feasibility study. Now, the report that the committee gave the town board report is a little contradictory to that. Same month. Wastewater feasibility study. We are researching legal approaches to ensure that any potential water or wastewater system is opt-in, meaning only people who want to connect do so and pay for the service. Because feasibility studies contain financial details, finding such an approach is a prerequisite for finalizing the study. Total contradiction. When reviewing the town board minutes, the CAC meeting minutes, and the committee reports together, the overall timeline and explanations presented throughout the process appear inconsistent in several aspects with statements made during the recent town board meeting. I forgot to put AmLaw here. Council member asked if the state could step in and again, it was 12:13 a.m. I tried. Council member asked if the state could step in, and the answer given was no. However, although the proposed system is essentially a shared septic system with a municipal leach field rather than a traditional centralized sewer treatment facility, county health departments, the DEC, and the DOH Department of Health still maintain separate environmental and public health enforcement authority over issues such as failing septic systems, groundwater contamination, unsafe drinking water conditions, and broader public health concerns regardless of the specific type of wastewater system involved. Throughout this process, repeated references have been made to contaminated wells, bacterial contamination, E. coli, and coliform findings, failing septic systems, groundwater and aquifer concerns, and residents being advised not to drink their water. Because those agencies still retain separate environmental and public health enforcement authority regarding those underlying conditions, there is still potential long-term implications associated with the district formation, including the possibility of future regulatory involvement or corrective action if those conditions persist. In closing, I also do not understand why it was characterized as silly to prepare a draft feasibility study when Brendan Becker himself asked the board whether they wanted a draft version prepared and reviewed. Given the magnitude of the potential financial, legal, infrastructure, environmental, and long-term operational implications associated with this project, I believe it would have been entirely reasonable for board members to review a draft feasibility study, ask questions, and better understand the project before moving further into district information-related proceedings. There is one thing that I forgot to put in here. I forgot to ask what guardrails will be created to ensure that those that don't opt in will never have to pay or be made to opt in, because a new board could change everything. So I did forget to ask that. There was definitely something else I wanted to say and I forgot. So that is the email that I sent to the board. I did get a response back from the town supervisor, which kind of leads me to believe that she didn't read the whole email, but that she was going to send that to Peg to put, I know what it was, to put the answers in the frequently asked questions. There was the conversation in the last board meeting when Steve asked about if the district can't pay, who's responsible. Supervisor kept saying that's a legal question. My concern is if you're asking a legal question, and I don't know if it's the town lawyer, if it's Hodgson or whoever it is, does that become lawyer-client privilege and then we can't get the answers? I'm not sure. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens. Again, quick reminder, community forum tomorrow night. Doors open at 6:30. It's at the community center. I will put up the links for the email and to join via Google Meets. And I will see you. Actually, maybe we'll see you on Friday. We'll see how the forum goes. I don't know. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. I appreciate you.